Hey, everybody, it's Wednesday. It seems like it's been a month since I've had a bit of a rant. It's only been a week. Of course, we were talking to Dr. Henning about Snowline Gold, which is a fantastic project, but it seems like in between then and there, between the market crashing, gold coming down, precious metals dropping, and rebounding a bit today, which is nice, all the talk of tariffs, all of the chaos ensuing out there. It seems like a lot more time has passed than what actually has, and it's in part because there's so much. It's not only that it's misinformation, because of course there is. There's no end to it, but it's also just the way the algorithm works. You have to have like kind of clickbaity, dramatic things to get people to even view things. I don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. I'd rather have less views and people who are more interested in a bit more rational conversation, a bit more critical. But that being said, I do enjoy watching some of the out there ones, and this video is kind of under the context of the Patrick Bet David show, which I enjoy. They definitely have a unique take on things. And it was this video, we're going to watch parts of it, is kind of under the larger discussion about tariffs, including, the Mar-a-Lago Accord, which maybe people aren't familiar with that terminology, but that's the tariff strategy that is being implemented by Besant and Trump. People, is it Trump's policy? Yes, but it really is Besant who's kind of championed this idea. We've got it written in our website and our blog. If you don't like Trump, fine, that's okay. You say he's not qualified, he doesn't know anything about business. Okay, that's fine. Besant certainly is. He's got quite the resume, and we try to focus on people saying, listen, there's so much noise out there and people don't even know how a tariff works, and then trying to misalign how a tariff works and whatnot, that it's just becoming exhausting. I barely even want to talk about it anymore or hear about it anymore. But I will say this from our research and whatnot. I always like to ask large language models what they think, because that's, it's interesting. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's factual. I mean, we should all know that by now. But even if you put it into the progressive program, ChatGPT, and that's not saying anything controversial. You can ask it where its bias leans. It'll tell you now. It wouldn't at the beginning, but it will now. But even if you ask it if this Mar-a-Lago Accord is better than just the printing money strategy, because everyone knows we've been printing money. Trump printed a lot of money in 2016. The Biden administration printed an astonishing amount of money. And that was what people thought, that maybe we're just going to keep printing money and just print into oblivion. So it even says that if you're thinking long-term and you're prioritizing sovereignty, manufacturing revival, and global rebalancing, the Besant-Trump strategy is arguably more sustainable. It may cause pain in the short term, but aims to reset structural flaws. If you're managing short-term political or market stability, the print and import strategy offers short-term relief, but kicks the can down the road and potentially towards a more volatile outcome later, like stagflation, currency crisis, or complete loss of dollar dominance. And as we know, Trump was given a mandate that the US dollar was going to be it. And this is under a very large narrative, whether you believe in it or not, of does the West need to be still the hegemony, or are we just going to hand it over to someone else? I have no interest in handing it over to someone else. There are those that really do have a very active interest in doing that, and that is the larger ideological plays in play. But I kind of look at this Mar-a-Lago Accord, whether or not it works or not. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm championing it or not. I like parts of it. It's really a rebuttal to modern monetary theory. And I think that is a good thing. And if anybody who's young, they're very well aware since 2008 of the massive amount of money printing and devaluation of the West entirely, but certainly out of the US, and the debt loads that we've taken on, that you've basically sold out the future. So if you don't remedy that, it's collapse. It will come. So that's kind of the preface of what we're going to see here with this this title. It says "Musk broke with Trump" about tariffs. I mean, my take on the whole tariff type things is that it's negotiation, and we'll get into that. And I'll just say this: you can't really have a true war with China as far as trade war. They are completely dominant in the production of critical metals. Even if the U.S. decides today that they are going to ignore all progressive attempts to stop mining or extraction, you couldn't possibly create the amount of critical metals production to match China. So what does that mean? Like whether it's your rare earths, whether it's your batteries, your dibdium from rare earth for magnets, all these critical components, they go into weaponry, GPS, all this. It's mostly controlled by China. Now, if the U.S. have spent a lot more time building up mining, building up production facilities, I'd say, well, maybe there is a chance. But really right now, I think it's mostly just politics. I think it's mostly just negotiating. Anyways, we'll get more into that in a little bit, but let's watch a little bit of this clip because there are some very interesting points being made here.
Jones industrial average plummeted more than 2,200 points on Friday, following 1679 previous drop, marking its worst session since the start of COVID 2020. As Wall Street's bloodbath erased $6.4 trillion in market value just in 2 days due to China's retaliatory 34% levy on U.S. imports starting April 10th in response to Trump's reciprocal tariff plan imposing a 54% tax effective April 9th. The tech-heavy NASDAQ fell 962, 5.8%, entering bear market territory with a drop exceeding 20% from its December peak, while S&P 500 declined 322 points, or 5.97 amid global stock market descent, driven by fears that Trump's 10% baseline tariff with harsher rates for many nations could stoke inflation and trigger a recession, as noted by Federal Reserve Jerome Powell, who warned of a potential persistent risk in inflation. Brandon, your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, so a lot to cover here. So, I mean, first and foremost, I'm super happy that the market's starting to go down. I think, honestly, people are going to hate this, but I think the best case scenario for the most people would be if the market goes down by something like 50%. Because
50%?
Yeah, because, 10% of people own 90% of the stock market. So, like, the vast majority of people who own the stock market are, the top 10%. And, 50 years ago, I looked this up. So, like, what would you guys imagine it took for amount of hours worked to buy a share of the S&P 500, say 1970? What would you guess?
20 hours?
Yeah, no, exactly right. Actually.
Was it really?
Yeah, right. Spot on. You know what it is today?
60.
170.
To what? To do what?
To buy one share of the S&P 500.
You need to work 170 hours today to buy
let's
one
just
share
pause
of the
it here.
S&P 500.
Because this goes on for 20 minutes, and interesting information. Because once again, under the context of, like, Patrick Bet-David is definitely a Trump guy. He's definitely a Republican. He's right wing. So a lot of people won't watch him just off of that. But you think that to even have a guest on who says, I want the stock market to go down, that doesn't sound like a really right-wing, wealthy oligarch discussion. This is kind of what is being proposed by left-wing people, is that it's all these rich people wanting to do this and that. This is a new crowd. This is why, like, the older generation, they don't understand that the real conversation is happening and that the shift that's happened. Most young people, they recognize that it's very few people own the stock market. It really is. So for them, and two, the stock market isn't the economy. It isn't. Now, people like to mistake that all the time as well. Most of these companies are completely massive global companies. Are they thrilled that they won't be able to use cheap labor or go into tax havens? No, it's a lot more difficult. Now that, of course, becomes the argument of, can the U.S. even do that? Could the world sustain if they actually paid people properly back in the U.S. and you actually had manufacturing? I don't know. That's a very good question. We can delve into that a lot more on our blog, but that seems to be, to some degree, what the plan is. And there's some really hilarious memes out there, and some of you may have seen them from, like, Chinese propaganda, but they're funny. But it shows, like, sweatshops that they, of course, have and champion, but it has a bunch of, like, really obese Americans, like working and putting things together in a giant factory, kind of showing is that what you really want? And listen, they're funny. I mean, they are kind of humorous, but it is also strange that is what people are asking for. Like they're saying, no. I want to just put my head in the sand and just let these other countries treat people like that. And no, we don't want to have manufacturing jobs. And once again, I'm not a champion of manufacturing jobs. I'm not saying they're a ton of fun. Like they're not. If you have to work on like the old line at GM, it was very repetitive. But at least you are paid well and paid for a job. I don't think necessarily the future has too much of that anyway. There's so much robotics coming. But that being said, because there's so much robotics, and you see Tesla really is the main driver there of like with Optimus. If you bring manufacturing back under that auspices, not under the idea that we're going to, kind of build up all these manufacturing jobs for like skilled labor working on a line, then it starts to make a bit more sense that you'd want to pull this back into the States. You want to have giant manufacturing robotic companies, battery companies, everything else, chips and whatnot. Would that still require a ton of people? Yeah, it requires some, not nearly as many. But that would be still in line with both sides that own all of these stocks and companies. So there's a lot here, and this is a very long discussion that they have. But I thought it was interesting because you have someone who's young, and their perspective is that they would rather see wealth spread out a bit more. They would rather see like kind of the 80s and 90s where there was a chance that you could start a small business or a medium-sized business instead of it just being Amazon, just being a globalist company. And I would say for the most part, a lot of people would like to see that. Now, can you convince someone to not buy the cheapest thing from, pick Walmart or off of Amazon? It's hard to, whenever the times are so tough. Would it cause inflation? Likely, if you tried to manufacture anything back at home. So there's lots of big questions up in the air. And the serious discussion, of course, is that giant layer of, do you just print money to move the problem forward? If you are a modern monetary theorist, then yes, just keep printing money. And hopefully there'll be no failure. This is a gamble to say, at least in theory, if you think this is the theory, is that we want to bring back manufacturing. Now, Biden, of course, was bringing back some manufacturing. So people can't be too upset that Trump is wanting to do that and using tariffs to do that. And that is putting a lot of pressure. And with this video, like Musk is saying, because obviously he does a lot of offshore business, he sources a fair amount of things. Like a lot of stuff is US made, but a lot is also China, Indonesia, the nickel. A lot of it is offshore. He does not want to see this tariff war. And, he's flat out said, ideally, and I would agree with him, ideally, with your partners and your friends, there would be zero tariffs on both sides. And then you'd be working together. So if you are more of the theory that this is a political move in order to redraw the lines of how the future is going to look, to thwart any BRICS discussion, to thwart further advancement by China as being the world leader or a dominant leader. That is kind of the backdrop that I think all of this is occurring. And so many people on the left side, they would actively just say, it's our time is finished. It's time for someone else to be in charge. You hear this narrative all the time. It's silly nonsense. I have no interest in that. I don't think most people that are, real A-type personalities that want to be like go-getters really feel like just saying, hey, someone else take over now. That doesn't make any sense. The West as a whole, and certainly the US, they are like the IP creators out there. And we need to keep it that way. So this debate also, it goes into the whole wealth inequality debate, which you think should come from the left, but it mostly comes from the right now, where they're saying, no, we would like to spread this out a bit more. We don't want to have these giant globalist billionaires to be all powerful, all in charge. We would like to see that this is spread out amongst your average person. That's a very different discussion. That is where we saw this flip of more of the right being like really pro-worker, and the left going, no, we are more the elitist. We don't really care about the average worker because they're stupid. But this is the future, and we'll just offshore everything. So it's a bigger conversation. And a lot of people thought that we'd moved past that conversation, and we gave it a shot. I remember even being at Merrill where we had like Tiger funds come in, and they had said we're in a post-industrial West. We're deindustrializing. We're just going to be basically idea people. We're all going to, like in the West, we're going to sit behind desks and we're going to be idea people. We're not going to make anything physically. And at the time, that kind of sounded great, except that you realize you have a massive amount of population that aren't going to be just idea people and be able to do engineering or be able to write code. They have to do something. There's just basic S curves out there regarding probabilities on everything. You need to have a lot of your base population still working, and it doesn't really make sense to just print the money and hire them federally or in government and just say, hey, push paper around, which is kind of what Doge is uncovering. And certainly Canada is kind of known for that. Leftist governments, that's what you do. You hire people, 8, 9, 10 people to do the job of one, but they're all busy. They're all doing something. You print more money and that goes towards GDP and it looks like you're growing. That's why the nuance of looking at GDP, at looking at actual growth is very important. Did you create it by actual merit and also growth and new industry, or did you grow up by just simply printing more money and hiring people into government jobs? And once again, that's a part of the bigger debate. And we want to be able to kind of look at this from all different sides and ask people, kind of join us on our blog where we get into a lot more of the details about this. And to see what do you think they're trying to accomplish here? Like, get rid of all of the noise and whatnot. But do you think the actual plan that they're putting forward as far as the Mar-a-Lago Accord, do you think that has a chance at doing anything? Because that is more interesting to me. Because some people will get back to me and say, Andrew, there's zero chance that you'd be able to have large-scale manufacturing. And of course, I don't think anybody is suggesting that we have sweatshops like they have out in China, or like little Apple sweatshops that we've seen on TV or whatnot. No one would suggest that's what we're looking for. But if we were able to bring back a lot more jobs in manufacturing, or say, I brought this up before, if the U.S. was to commit to actually not just saying we want to do this, but with COP28 is that they're going to be a nuclear powerhouse, then have the actual plan in place, not only to mine and get the uranium and to process that uranium, but then all the nuclear reactors, which is something like 8 a year that would need to be done a year, 8 nuclear projects, have all that employed, have that funded and start building that out. That's a lot of jobs. And those are high skilled jobs. Like engineering, roads and infrastructure for a nuclear reactor is not the same as building a suburb out here in whatever city you happen to be at. So is that likely? I don't know. I mean, look how hard it is. As we wrote in one of our blogs, about 77% of Canadians would like to see a pipeline going from west to east. Do I think that could happen? I doubt it. Certainly not if it's Carney. Certainly not if it's anyone left-leaning. It won't happen. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But the way that the government currently set up is any special interest group can stop that process, boom, and just leave it in court. And that's a sad reality of kind of Canada, but that's also for the large part the U.S. And you hear of these stories about even trying to do green initiatives, say like a hydro pump kind of strategy in the States. I heard of one company. There was like 50 different agencies that needed to be contacted even after you've got EPA approval. I mean, it's over the top bureaucracy to stop any kind of growth. Do you think they do that in China? Do you think that they're the reason why they're able to plow forward, not only because of cheap labor and because they've got a larger plan, a very long, decades-long plan, is that they only have to meet the standards that are given worldwide. They don't have any of the environmentalist groups. They don't care about COP28. They don't care when the UN says you can't do this, you can't do that. They have zero interest in emissions regulations. They're just simply going to power forward, and they're going to control as much as they can in a short term. Now, that's once again a larger conversation about politics. But all of these things are converging. And this is where I think, regardless of where you stand on all of this stuff, tariffs, Trump, whatever, like the noise part is, we've been talking for years that the West, which includes obviously the US as the leader of the West right now, needs to have supply chains of critical metals and energy. It doesn't. It needs to. It's been talked about for years and years and years. How it gets done, very challenging. It looks like maybe they're trying to in the US now to do that. And that's the bigger kind of move that's happening. All these supply changes, trades are changing. This is where I think it's a good thing. You cannot rely and give all of your power from all manufacturing, whether it's pharmaceutical, whether it's energy, whether it's processing of all critical metals, away to a foreign country. It doesn't work. They had hoped that that strategy of giving tech to China, of giving them money, giving them all this stuff, and then offshoring everything, that they would then become Americans. They're not. They're not interested, and nor should they. I wouldn't want that. I want them to stay Chinese and love their history and do what they're going to do. I don't have any interest in the communist part, but they were hoping to start some sort of revolution over there, where with enough money and technology, everyone would want to become kind of like Americans, and that has not happened. And China then quickly realized, wait a second, we can go from basically nothing and become a world player, which they have incredibly. And regardless, once again, of how they did it, it shows it can be done. They have just moved massively forward. The amount of mega projects they get done. I even just watched, I like to watch incredible engineering feats, bridges that they build that you think this can't be done, and they'll do it in 3, 4, 5 years. This is the type of pride and ingenuity we have to have at the West, to have almost like a competition with them, but in a friendly way, to say, we can match that. We can build some marvel as well. That's a much better competition, and to reframe, because once again, I don't think it's a war, a trade war. I think it's negotiation. I think it can't be a war. Once again, if one side controls all the critical metals, there's no war there. They just stop selling. And China's done that before. They've done it with vanadium. They've done it with rare earths. And they're basically, they've done it already with antimony. They've listed a bunch of other like rare earths that are now on their tariff list, and they'll just keep ramping it up. You can't build out your missile systems, your drones. You can't do any of that unless you have a lot of these critical metals, and the US doesn't have it yet. And once again, the thought that you could just say, let's take Greenland and start mining, like, even if you did that, it would take, I'm just going to spitball. It could take 5 to 10 years, even if they had a resource and you got a mine going and you started producing. It's too long. Like this, all this should have started a long time ago. So what I think is good here is that it's a shock to everybody. It's a wake-up call, and it certainly is to Canada, to say, listen, you can either choose to be a partner with the US or not. Maybe it is that you want to be a partner with China. Maybe it is that you want to be a China with someone else, but you need to have control of your resources. That's critical. Whoever decides to focus and has them, we are one of them in Canada. We have all of them. If we really focus in on that, we become masters of our own destiny. If we don't, and if we just sit in the back seat again and say, well, we want to be green, we want to do this, so we won't extract anything, we're in trouble. So regardless of how uncomfortable things are, and they certainly are, we see it, we feel it. It's not only in the stock market, but it's everything is changing, and we have to kind of think, what is possibly happening? Is there good that could come? I see that there is good that could come. Doesn't mean it's going to, but it certainly isn't all bad. And once again, we have to take the personalities away from the idea that's being presented. And I'll give an example. Elon Musk. Listen, like, that's such a nuanced conversation. Like, people are saying, do I think he's got self-interest? Of course he does. He's a billionaire. You don't get there without having self-interest. That personality type, he of course has some self-interest in these things. Should he have been so active in politics? It's never good. Even for me to talk a little bit about politics, I only really want to do it in regards to like critical metals and energy and economy. if I start going down the road and talk about other things, I'd lose half the people right away. People don't like it so much. Like, just, it's tough. And now I get it. If you are the mindset that he would be in, and I understand that this is an end to the West, which you could easily make the argument that has been the trajectory and that has been the planned purpose. Then yes, he is very motivated. Now, a lot of people won't have that or even understand that is a possibility. But if you do believe that that's a case, and you're a billionaire, then you would be very motivated to say, I have no interest in the end to the West and just rolling over. So that maybe puts some a nugget in your brain to say, well, really, is that in part what this is about? It's not just all about money. I would suggest it isn't all just about money. But of course, there's self-interest. Like they make no mistake. There's a reason why they didn't get along, and now they get along just great. But also the irony of that, the fellow who has all of the green infrastructure and innovation that Biden funded, that Obama funded. Well, sorry, Biden took back some of it, but Obama funded, and really everybody on the left loved, because he was doing the batteries, he's doing the cars, he's doing the EVs. It's all these things. He's now hated by those same people. I mean, this is the crazy world we live in. It makes no sense. And that's all in part because of the politics part, not the environmental part, not the E part, but it's the SG of the ESG. The SG part is the most important part. It's the driver. It's for the ideology that is certainly against Trump, is that the ESG part is almost nothing about the E, and it's all about the S and G. And if the S and G has the final say and is the most important component of ESG, then really the climate or the environment is just the coating. And that's why they often say green on the outside and red on the inside. Anyways, enough rambling. Thanks for joining us. Take a look at our blog. We've got tons of information there. We've got an energy report that's coming out as well. It's pretty deep. There's a lot in there. And of course, we cover the Mar-a-Lago Accord. We give some back and forth there, because we want people to have more of this conversation of, do you think it's even possible? Could we bring back all these manufacturing jobs if we had to pay everyone a proper salary? That's a big cost. Anyways, lots of things to think about. These are the questions we find interesting, and let us know what you think. Anyways, that's enough ranting for me. I would say enjoy the week. It's tough. It's very challenging out there. So maybe if we could just enjoy something small in each day and just be grateful for that and happy, that'll keep the mindset forward focused and looking for opportunity, rather than just being overwhelmed with the absolute chaos that's out there and madness that's out there. All right, everyone, all the best. Take care. And I hope you're doing well. Stay healthy.